The skies burned as Zeldar warships descended upon Earth like hungry vultures. From orbit, their bombardments reduced entire cities to smoldering craters. Humanity's defenses, once thought formidable, crumbled within days. The Zeldar Dominion had come to conquer, and their victory seemed inevitable. General Elias Vance stood in the underground command bunker, watching the chaos unfold on the holographic war map. The enemy's advance was methodical, relentless. Every attempt at resistance had been swatted aside with brutal efficiency. Satellite defenses, gone. Our air force, decimated. Ground forces, barely holding on, reported Colonel Hayes, his voice tight with frustration. Vance's jaw tightened. He had known this war was coming, but the sheer scale of the Zeldar's power had caught even the most prepared leaders off guard. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds before Earth, and they treated humanity as nothing more than another footnote in their path to galactic dominance. A guttural voice crackled through the command center speakers. The Zeldar Supreme Commander, Kareth Vul, addressed the remnants of Earth's leadership. Humans, your struggle is meaningless. Surrender, and we may allow some of you to survive as servants of the Dominion. Resist, and your species will be erased from history. A heavy silence filled the room. The Zeldar saw this as a foregone conclusion. They had crushed civilizations more advanced than Earth with ease. But what they did not understand, what they could not understand, was that humanity had never fought like the others. Vance turned to his officers, his voice unwavering. They think they've already won. That's their first mistake. Colonel Hayes frowned. General, with respect, our forces are. I know, Vance cut him off. But we still have an advantage. He reached for a classified file, labeled Contingency Protocol, Shadow War. It was never meant to be used, only in the most dire of circumstances. But now, it was Earth's only hope. Our weapons are useless against their ships. Our armies are no match for theirs in open combat. So we fight a different war, Vance said, handing the file to his officers. Confusion flickered across their faces as they scanned the contents. There were no mentions of superweapons or hidden fleets. No secret technology that could turn the tide. Instead, it contained something far more dangerous. Psychological warfare. Deception. Guerrilla tactics on a level the Zeldar had never faced. We make them doubt themselves, Vance continued. We make them question every shadow, fear every whisper. We fight with our minds, not our weapons. The officers exchanged uncertain glances. This was uncharted territory, fighting an enemy whose technology vastly outclassed theirs through pure manipulation and terror. Sir, you're saying we don't engage them directly? Hayes asked. We can't, Vance admitted. But that doesn't mean we lose. We change the rules of the war until they don't know how to fight it. The sound of distant explosions rumbled through the bunker. Time was running out. The Zeldar believed the battle was over before it had truly begun. But they were wrong. As the invasion intensified, Earth's forces seemingly melted away. Cities were abandoned overnight. Military bases left eerily empty. Zeldar patrols found their supply depots intact, yet somehow sabotaged from within. And then, the disappearances started. Zeldar officers vanished without a trace. Supply chains were disrupted. Entire battalions lost contact, their last transmissions filled with confusion and fear. Something was hunting the invaders. And the Zeldar, for the first time in their empire's history, felt something alien to them. Doubt. Commander Valek of the Zeldar Dominion stood at the center of a military outpost built atop the ruins of what humans once called New York City. The towering spires of alien fortifications jutted into the sky, a symbol of their dominion over yet another conquered world. Yet, despite their overwhelming victory, something felt wrong. The battle should have been over. Humanity should have been broken. And yet, the war was shifting. Reports trickled in, each more concerning than the last. A patrol of 8 soldiers had vanished. No traces left behind, no blood, no signs of struggle. A supply convoy exploded under mysterious circumstances, no human soldiers seen, no detectable bombs planted. A Zeldar officer found dead in his quarters, the words, "You are not safe," scrawled onto the walls in his own blood. It made no sense. Humanity's armies had collapsed. Their cities had been abandoned. Their people were either hiding or dead. And yet, something was fighting back. Valak turned toward the trembling officer before him. "You're telling me an entire battalion was lost in a secure zone?" The officer, young by Zeldar standards, hesitated before nodding. "Why yes, Commander. They sent a distress call, but when reinforcements arrived, they found nothing. No bodies. No wreckage. Just silence." Valak narrowed his reptilian eyes. This was not a rebellion. This was something else. Something unseen. Increase patrols. Sweep the ruins. Find the humans responsible, he ordered. The officer hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. Our men, some of them refuse to go on patrol at night. They claim to hear whispers in the ruins. They say—" "I don't care what they say," Valak growled. "We are the Dominion. We do not fear shadows." But the officer's expression betrayed his unease. Valak dismissed him with a sharp wave. He needed to regain control of the situation. Humans were primitive, inferior, incapable of standing against the Dominion. Their strategy had always been brute force and outdated technology. But now? Now they were fighting like ghosts. #####The first mistake. In the ruins of what was once a subway station, a group of human resistance fighters watched the Zeldar patrols through night vision scopes. Captain Erin Cade adjusted her earpiece and whispered, "Target patrol has increased. They're getting nervous." Across from her, a hooded figure chuckled. "Good. Let's make them worse." That voice belonged to Lieutenant Samir Vasquez, one of the best saboteurs left in the fight. He motioned to a group of operatives, who moved swiftly, setting up crude but effective traps, hacked Zeldar drones, set to turn on their masters, and sound decoys mimicking human voices. "Vance was right," Aaron murmured. "They don't know how to fight a war they can't see." The Zeldar relied on order. On overwhelming force. But humans? Humans had built entire wars on deception, misdirection, and guerrilla tactics. Their greatest weapon wasn't firepower. It was fear. ######panic in the ranks. The next night, the Zeldar launched their sweeps. Hundreds of soldiers stormed through the ruins, determined to root out the unseen enemy. Then, the screams began. A squad of elite troopers entered a crumbling building, only for the lights on their armor to flicker out. Their comms crackled. Static filled the air. Then silence. When reinforcements arrived minutes later, they found the squad's weapons still on the ground. But the soldiers? Gone. No blood. No struggle. Only a single message, scratched into the wall. "We see you." Terror spread like wildfire through the Dominion forces. Even the most disciplined soldiers hesitated before stepping into the ruins at night. Whispers of an invisible enemy spread among the ranks. The Zeldar had won countless battles across the stars. But never had they faced an enemy that could break them without ever being seen. Commander Valak watched as fear tightened its grip on his soldiers. He clenched his claws into fists. "This is not a war," he muttered. "This is something else." The alien high command was fracturing. Commander Valak had never imagined his forces would be so vulnerable. His warriors, once confident and unstoppable, now feared the very shadows they had once commanded with absolute power. It was a feeling Valak had never experienced: doubt. "Commander," the officer hesitated, entering Valak's quarters. "Another unit's gone missing." This time, it was an entire division, no one left behind, not even a trace of a struggle. Valak's eyes flashed with anger, but beneath it, a gnawing sense of helplessness. They were no longer fighting for victory. They were fighting to hold on to their own sanity. And with every disappearing soldier, their grip on the war weakened further. "They're toying with us," Valak hissed, pacing the room. "But I will not be defeated by a human trick." He turned to his second-in-command, General Vacher, who had remained silent. "I want every officer under my command to be on high alert. These humans are trying to create fear where there is none." Vacher, always the pragmatic one, spoke up. "Commander, we cannot dismiss this. We are losing control of our units. Our soldiers are afraid." The word "afraid" was like a slap in the face. Valak's gaze hardened. "Fear is a weakness. We will crush it." But Valak could not shake the feeling that something deeper, something more dangerous than just fear, was at work. These humans, they were playing a game, and it was not a game the Dominion had ever learned to play. Hashtag turning the tables. In the human resistance camps scattered throughout the ruins of the major cities, the truth of the situation was becoming clearer. They weren't just fighting a physical war. They were engaged in a psychological battle, one where the Zeldar's own paranoia was their greatest weapon. Captain Erin Cade, along with her team, gathered around the flickering holographic map of the city, studying the positions of the Zeldar forces. Their movements were erratic, almost as if they were hunting for ghosts. "Let's turn their paranoia into a weapon," Erin said. "If they're scared, we use that. Make them believe there's no safe place, no escape." Lieutenant Vasquez, with his trademark grin, added, "Fear is contagious. And we're about to make them very contagious." Erin motioned to the screen, displaying a newly hacked communications feed. "We've intercepted their encrypted channels. They're already asking questions. They're wondering if their own officers are sabotaging them." The plan was simple but brilliant. Every attack would be carried out with precision, leaving behind enough evidence to make the Zeldar question their own loyalty. Each ambush, each sabotage, each act of guerrilla warfare would be engineered to create confusion. "Imagine the scenario," Erin continued. "You're a Zeldar officer. You've lost entire squads without a fight. You don't know who to trust. You hear whispers of betrayal, and every shadow makes you jump. Soon, you'll be fighting not just us, but each other." The key was to make the Zeldar doubt their command structure, their technology, and their ability to trust one another. Fear would spread like a virus, each soldier too terrified to turn their back on another. Hashtag the strain of command. Meanwhile, back in the Zeldar command bunker, Commander Valak received the latest report. His second-in-command, Vacher, entered with a grim expression. "Sir, there has been another mass defection. 4 battalions are refusing orders, claiming they are being sabotaged by unknown forces within their ranks. The men they are paranoid." Valak slammed his fist onto the table. "What is happening?" "Fear is spreading like wildfire," Vacher replied, trying to remain calm. "Some soldiers are even claiming they hear human voices on their comms, directing them to sabotage their own forces." Valak's eyes narrowed. "These humans are more dangerous than we realized. We must stamp out this fear, or the entire Dominion will collapse." Vacher hesitated. "Commander, there is a growing mutiny. The soldiers are losing faith in the leadership. Some are even turning on their officers, claiming they've been compromised." Valak clenched his fists, his patience thin. He had underestimated humanity's capacity for psychological warfare. He had believed their dominance was unquestionable, until now. "Prepare to make an example of these cowards," Valak barked, though his voice lacked the conviction he had once had. "We will restore order, or I will have their heads." But even as he gave the order, a small voice of doubt whispered in the back of his mind, could he truly control this? Hashtag the illusion cracks. On the battlefield, humanity's weapon was becoming clearer to the Zeldar. Their superior technology, once the core of their dominance, was no longer a guarantee of success. The once fearless alien soldiers began questioning their own capabilities. The paranoia grew. Every unexplained loss, every flicker of interference in their communication systems, made them doubt their command. And that was the crux of humanity's strategy. It was not physical strength that would win this war, but the ability to exploit the cracks in their enemy's mind. The Zeldar were losing control. Their minds were unraveling, not because of any weapon, but because humanity had turned their most primal fear into a weapon of mass destruction. And it was only just beginning. ##### shadows among shadows. The Zeldar were no longer just losing a war, they were losing their minds. Commander Valek had expected a straightforward conquest, with the humans cowering in fear or retreating under the might of his forces. But instead, his soldiers were retreating into fear, their nerves frayed and their unity shattered. Every patrol they sent out into the ruined cities returned with only part of the squad intact. Some soldiers went missing entirely, leaving only cryptic symbols scrawled on the walls, ***, not safe. Even worse, reports came in of Zeldar officers turning on their own men, convinced they were surrounded by traitors. With every new uprising, every new soldier who questioned his orders, Valek could feel the war slipping through his fingers. He leaned over his desk, his mind racing, but unable to focus. "What are we missing?" he muttered to himself. Valker, ever the pragmatist, entered the room without a word, his eyes shadowed with grim determination. "We're losing them, Commander," Valker said quietly. "We're not just fighting humans anymore. We're fighting their fear. And it's winning." Valek's breath caught in his throat. Fear was a weapon, true, but it was a weapon they hadn't prepared for. "You're telling me that fear has brought us to the edge of defeat?" Valek's voice was a low growl. "It's not just fear, Commander," Valker replied. "It's manipulation. The humans have somehow turned our own soldiers against us." Valek felt a chill settle in his bones. He had heard of this kind of psychological warfare before, the way humans could twist the mind and break down the strongest of wills. But he had thought it a myth. The Zeldar had never faced it on this scale. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity. "Gather the council," Valek ordered, his tone sharper than it had been in days. "We need a strategy, and we need it now. #### humans in the dark." Meanwhile, Captain Erin Cade and her team continued their silent war against the Zeldar. They had become shadows among the shadows, undetected, unseen, but everywhere. The key to the success of their guerrilla campaign had been simple: exploit the enemy's own fear. Erin crouched beside a destroyed building, scanning the area through her thermal goggles. "They're losing control," she said quietly, watching a squad of Zeldar soldiers move hesitantly through the wreckage. Their movements were erratic, like animals that could sense something lurking in the dark but couldn't find the source of their terror. Samir Vasquez, always the joker, wiped his face with his hand. "If I didn't know better, I'd say they're jumping at shadows." "They are," Erin said, her voice calm but firm. "And we're the shadows." She adjusted her scope and peered through the crosshairs, focusing on the leader of the Zeldar patrol. A quick press of the button on her wrist and a low, inaudible hum filled the air. The Zeldar leader stiffened, suddenly feeling a presence at his back. He whipped around, his weapon raised, but there was nothing. Only a flicker of motion in the corner of his eye. Erin smiled as the confusion spread through the ranks. She didn't need to fire a single shot. For the humans, the key to their warfare was subtlety. Each trap, each sabotage, each whisper in the dark, designed to make the Zeldar question everything. They no longer feared the humans directly, they feared the idea of them. The presence that could strike anywhere and at any time. "You know," Vasquez said, "I think we've got them right where we want them." Erin's expression hardened. "We haven't won yet. But they're close to breaking." ##### the fracture point. In the high command chambers of the Zeldar, the situation had reached a boiling point. Commander Valek and his generals gathered in tense silence, surrounded by holographic displays showing the retreat of his forces and the collapse of order in the ranks. "Commander," Valk said, his voice strained. The soldiers are on the brink. We've lost full control of the western quadrant. There are reports of entire battalions refusing orders. Some are even threatening to shoot their superiors. Valk stood motionless, his claws digging into the edge of the table. The realization hit him hard, this wasn't just a military defeat. It was a total collapse. His empire was crumbling, not from the might of the humans, but from the very fear they had cultivated in his own soldiers. They're breaking our forces from within, Valk muttered. Valk looked at him gravely. I hate to say it, Commander, but they may have already won. The Zeldar are no strangers to war, but we've never fought an enemy that knows how to break you from the inside out. Valk clenched his fists. No. We will not yield to them. ###### the edge of collapse. The next day, the Zeldar command structure began to buckle under the strain. Rebel soldiers, once loyal, began siding with the humans. The reports from the front lines were full of chaos, confusion, and bitter betrayal. The psychological war had taken its toll, and the Zeldar were now fighting against their own minds. Meanwhile, Erin and her team prepared for their next move. Every trap they set, every mind they broke, was pushing the Zeldar closer to collapse. But Erin knew this wasn't the time to stop. It was time to press the advantage. We've got them on the ropes, Erin said, looking over the shattered cityscape. Now it's time to finish it. It was now clear that the Zeldar had been driven to the brink of total collapse. The alien empire, once feared and respected across the galaxy, was unraveling before their eyes. Commander Valk paced furiously in the command bunker, eyes darting between the reports flashing across his display. Every new update showed fewer and fewer soldiers loyal to him. A once proud force had become a fractured, panicked shadow of itself. Fear was no longer a mere psychological weapon, it had become the truth they lived in. Every corner of their vast empire seemed to be infected with doubt, and every encounter with the humans added to their terror. Where are the reinforcements? Valk growled. His patience was running thin. We have nothing but traitors and cowards now. Valk stood silently by his side, watching as Valk's once pristine military composure slowly crumbled. We've already sent for reinforcements, Commander, Valk said. But morale is so low, there are rumors spreading even among the new recruits that the humans have infiltrated our ranks. Valk's jaw clenched. We are not the ones who fear, he muttered, as though trying to convince himself more than anyone else. But deep down, he knew the truth. Humanity had used their own fear against them in ways that no strategy could have predicted. The very essence of the Zeldar's military prowess, discipline, order, and unwavering loyalty, had been shattered by whispers in the dark, sabotage from within, and the constant dread of an enemy they couldn't see. I will not be defeated by this madness, Valk growled, the edge of desperation creeping into his voice. ###### a small victory. Back in the human resistance base, Erin Cade stood before a map of the remaining Zeldar strongholds. They had pushed the invaders back further and further into the ruins of the city, but the final push was going to require everything they had. The psychological warfare had done its work, the Zeldar were on the verge of self-destruction. But that wasn't enough. It was time to strike the final blow. We need to hit them where it counts, Erin said, her voice steady as she addressed her team. They've already lost their grip on the city. They're scared, and they don't trust each other anymore. If we can get to the heart of their command, we can bring this war to an end. Lieutenant Vasquez grinned. No need for big explosions this time, huh? Just a little tap, and they'll implode. Erin nodded. Exactly. The war has already been won. Now it's about sealing the deal. The plan was simple. They would infiltrate the last remaining Zeldar command center, using the chaos they had sown to sneak past whatever security remained. Once inside, a single strike would fracture their leadership once and for all. If they could eliminate the few remaining officers who still held loyalty to the Dominion, it would be a matter of hours before the entire Zeldar force collapsed under its own weight. Aaron couldn't afford to take any chances, though. Their enemies were desperate, and desperate enemies were dangerous. She steeled herself for the final phase of their plan. #######, a decision at the edge. Valak stood on the precipice of his empire's collapse. The last remnants of his once powerful command had fractured beyond repair, and it was no longer a question of if the humans would win, but how they would deliver the final blow. His options were few. He could retreat with what little remained of his forces, trying to salvage some honor, or he could go down fighting. He knew which choice the Dominion would expect of him. But there was something else. The whispers, the growing panic, had told him of a path not of retreat, but of defiance. "We still have the Fury-class battlecruisers in orbit," Valkyr reminded him quietly. "We could make one last stand. A retaliatory strike, aimed at Earth's heart." Valak clenched his claws. The thought of abandoning the planet, of accepting defeat, was a bitter pill to swallow. But the Zeldar had never known surrender. The Fury-class ships were their final weapon, their ultimate line of defense. With a single strike, they could obliterate the human stronghold. It would mean total annihilation for the survivors, but it could also buy them enough time to escape before the full extent of the retaliation hit. "Prepare the fleet," Valak ordered, his voice heavy. "If we are to fall, we will take everything with us." Valkyr didn't argue. He knew this was the last chance for the Zeldar to go out on their terms, destroy everything and leave no trace behind. But as the order was given, a deep, unsettling feeling gnawed at Valak's insides. He wasn't sure whether this was a desperate move out of pride, or if it was the final act of a creature trapped in a corner. ########, the last assault. In the heart of the Zeldar's final stronghold, Erin Cade and her team prepared to infiltrate the command center. With every step, she felt the weight of the upcoming strike pressing down on her. Vasquez slung his weapon over his shoulder. "Almost there. What do you think? One shot, and this is all over?" Erin's lips quirked into a slight smile. "No. Not just one shot. We're going to make sure they know it was us." The time for subtlety had passed. It was time to make their mark on history. The war was about to end. And humanity would win. Erin Cade and her team moved silently through the ruins of the Zeldar command complex. Their steps were measured, every breath a calculated risk. The atmosphere was thick with tension, but Erin's focus was sharp. The Zeldar had been breaking from within for days now, but the final strike was crucial. This was the moment that would decide it all. The dark halls of the command center echoed with the hollow sound of their footsteps, but the usual sounds of alien patrols were absent. The Zeldar were in disarray, paranoia and fear had consumed them, leaving the heart of their military might vulnerable. "We're almost there," Samir whispered, his hand resting on his rifle. "Just a few more turns." Erin nodded, eyes scanning the complex. Their plan had been simple: find the command room, plant their explosives, and leave before the Zeldar even realized what was happening. But simplicity could never be fully trusted in war. "I hope the timing is right," she muttered under her breath. "We can't afford a slip-up." As they reached the heart of the command center, Erin peered around the corner and saw the security panel guarding the main entry. It was quiet, too quiet. She held up her hand for the team to halt, then signaled Vasquez to disable the security system. He moved quickly, his fingers dancing over the panel, and with a soft click, the doors to the heart of the Zeldar military apparatus slid open. Inside, the room was filled with the kind of chaos Erin had hoped for, alien officers shouting orders, but no one listening. "Now," Erin ordered. "Plant the charges and move fast." Valak's last gamble. Back in the skies above Earth, Commander Valak stood before the view screen of his flagship, the Desolation. The massive ship hovered just beyond the planet's atmosphere, ready to launch its final assault. "Prepare the Fury-class ships," he commanded, his voice cold and resolute. "We end this now." Valkyr stood at his side, his face tense. "Commander, if we do this, we will be throwing away everything." The Zeldar Empire, our people, our future. We may never recover from this strike. Valek's gaze remained fixed on the planet below. If humanity wins, we will never recover from the shame. We either crush them now or vanish into oblivion. He turned to his command console. Launch the Fury-class battlecruisers. No mercy. As the fleet of ships prepared to unleash their deadly payload, Valek's mind raced. Was this truly the end? He had always prided himself on his strategic brilliance, yet now he felt nothing but doubt. Could the Zeldar, the greatest empire in the galaxy, truly be defeated by a race so young and untested? He had not believed it possible. Now, it seemed inevitable. But the damage had already been done. He had crossed the point of no return. ###### The moment of reckoning. Back on Earth, Aaron's team had planted the charges and was quickly retreating through the wrecked corridors of the Zeldar Command Center. The plan was in motion, and all they needed now was to get out without being caught in the blast. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A low, ominous hum filled the air, vibrating through the walls. It was a sound Aaron had heard before, one she had feared but had hoped to avoid. The Zeldar were launching their final assault. "We've got to hurry," Aaron barked. The team moved faster, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They rounded the corner to the exit, only to be met with the sound of heavy boots echoing down the hall. Alien soldiers. They had been discovered. "Split up," Aaron ordered. "Vasquez, take the right. Kira, head left. I'll draw their fire." The team split, and chaos erupted. The Zeldar soldiers opened fire, but the humans were already moving. Aaron darted down the hallway, knowing that every second was crucial. The countdown was ticking, and the charges would go off whether or not they were ready. Samir and Kira's weapons blazed in the distance, distracting the Zeldar soldiers just long enough for Aaron to reach the outside. She turned back once to see her team still holding their ground, fending off the Zeldar in a deadly dance of fire and retaliation. Then, the ground beneath her shook again, stronger this time. A blinding flash lit up the horizon, followed by a wave of heat so intense it seemed to burn through her bones. The final explosion had taken place. The command center, the heart of the Zeldar Empire's last hopes, was no more. And the war was over. ####### The Empire falls. Valek watched in disbelief as the first wave of explosions tore through the planet's surface. His entire fleet had launched their attack, but as the Zeldar command center exploded in a shower of light and fire, something inside him snapped. The realization hit like a bolt of lightning: his empire was no more. The Fury-class ships continued their assault, but the strategic position had already been lost. The final wave of destruction had been launched, but it was now too late. Valek stood motionless in the center of the command bridge as his empire crumbled around him. Humanity had done the impossible. The Zeldar had been defeated, not by brute force or overwhelming numbers, but by something far more devastating: human ingenuity, fear, and their unyielding will to survive. "Status report." Valek snapped, but he already knew the answer. It was over. The final moment had arrived. Earth was free. And humanity had won. In the wake of the final explosion, a wave of silence spread across the battlefield. The once mighty Zeldar Empire had fallen. Their command center was nothing but a pile of smoldering debris, their fleet disoriented and in disarray. Aaron Cade stood atop the rubble, the realization of their victory slowly sinking in. It had been a long and bloody struggle, but the war was finally over. She looked out at the distant horizon, her thoughts momentarily drifting. The battle was done, but the cost had been high. Too many lives had been lost, and the scars of war would remain for generations to come. But humanity had proven its worth, not just to the galaxy, but to itself. They had faced an overwhelming, superior force and emerged victorious. "This is Earth," she whispered, her voice carried by the wind. "This is our future." Behind her, Vasquez, Samir, and Kira joined her. Their faces were tired, but their eyes sparkled with something stronger now, pride, and a deep sense of accomplishment. The war that had defined their lives was over. "Do you think they'll come back?" Kira asked, breaking the silence. Erin shook her head. "No. The Zeldar are finished. They won't be back." Vasquez let out a low laugh. "And if they do, we'll be waiting." Erin smiled at the thought. Humanity had already proven they were capable of the impossible, and now, they had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. The Zeldar had learned that lesson the hard way. But it wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about rebuilding, creating a future. One where Earth was no longer a backwater planet, hidden in the shadows of galactic empires, but a force to be reckoned with. ###### Valek's last choice. On the bridge of his flagship, Valek stood frozen, staring at the devastation he had unleashed. The Fury-class ships had launched their attacks, but they had failed. His empire, built on millennia of conquest, had crumbled to dust in a matter of hours. He turned to Valker, his most trusted officer. "Tell me this is not the end," he whispered. Valker was silent for a moment before speaking. "It's over, Commander. The fleet is scattered, the planets are lost. We've failed." Valek clenched his fists, fury and disbelief battling within him. "No. We were supposed to be the greatest. We were supposed to conquer." He sank into the captain's chair, his mind spiraling. But amidst the anger and despair, something unexpected stirred, a thought, a flicker of reason. The Zeldar Empire might have fallen, but he was still alive. He was still the leader of the remnants. They had lost the war, but they hadn't lost everything. "We may have lost the battle," Valek muttered, "but the war doesn't have to end here. There are other galaxies, other powers. The humans might have defeated us, but they cannot defeat what we still have left." Valker raised an eyebrow. "You want to fight on?" Valek nodded slowly. "Yes. We regroup. We rebuild. Earth will be a distant memory soon enough." ###### The galactic stage shifts. On Earth, the United Earth Alliance was already hard at work in the aftermath of the conflict. Erin Cade, standing before the council, addressed the leaders of Earth's new government. "We've won," she said, her voice strong. "The Zeldar are broken, and they're not coming back. It's time to rebuild, time to show the galaxy who we are." The council members nodded, their expressions grave but resolute. They knew the challenges ahead were not going to be easy. Rebuilding a shattered planet, restoring the economy, and preparing for the future would take time. But they had survived the impossible. "The universe will be watching us," Erin continued. "We have to make sure the message is clear. Humanity is no longer a weak, insignificant species. We are the future." In the months that followed, Earth's leaders worked tirelessly to repair their world and secure their place in the galaxy. They had the technology, the will, and the ambition to carve out a new future for themselves. The age of isolation was over. Humanity was now a force to be reckoned with, a power that had earned its place among the stars. And as for the Zeldar, their once unassailable empire was no more. Their fleets lay in ruins, their command structures in shambles, and their future uncertain. Valek's last attempt at revenge would be remembered as a footnote in the annals of history. ##### The legacy of humanity. As the years passed, humanity's influence spread throughout the galaxy. Earth became a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for those who had suffered under the heel of tyrannical empires. The Zeldar faded into obscurity, their legacy tarnished by their defeat at the hands of a race they had once considered insignificant. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, its ingenuity, and its sheer determination. Erin Cade, now a legend, watched as the new generation of Earth's soldiers prepared for their first intergalactic mission. The war was over, but the fight for the future had just begun. And in the heart of every human, the fire that had driven them to victory burned brighter than ever. Humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't their technology, their armies, or even their cunning. It was their spirit, their unwavering refusal to be beaten. And that spirit would carry them far into the stars. The galaxy had learned the hard way: humanity was no longer just a footnote in the grand cosmic story. It was a force that would reshape the universe.